If you click this video, you're probably struggling with making games, just like I was, literally last video.
Help! Help!
Yeah, it was rough. I get it. I've been there too. Shut up, Ultra. You're still there. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm still there with you. Jeez. Anyway, I recently learned something that made everything click for me. And I'm not talking about some magical Udemy course or a 10 times your skill PDF nonsense. I'm talking about 3 real lessons that improved my coding, my game dev process, and honestly, my sanity. And this isn't going to be some polished tutorial, especially not after what happened 2 weeks ago. We don't talk about that. Ever. But if you stick around till the end, I promise you'll walk away a better game developer and a better learner. After I uploaded that train wreck of a video 2 weeks ago, I knew something needed to change, and I'll give myself some credit. It was my first 2 weeks trying to code without tutorials, but man, it felt like I was just guessing half the time. And I was stuck in this endless loop of writing down random code, not understanding it, copy pasting some random snippets, and then wondering why it didn't work. So after that, I decided to take a step back from my project to think, what is it that I'm struggling with? And I can't just say everything even though it was the truth. Looking back at the video and my first 2 weeks in the project, my main issue was primarily creating the code logic for the game and understanding what I was reading. My code felt like some ancient or forbidden text, and not the cool kind that gives you all-knowing powers, more like the kind that gives you the power of irreversible brain damage. So because I didn't understand my code, I decided to revisit the basics of C++, and this is where I stumbled on my first solution for game development. I relearned the fundamentals of coding. Yeah, that's it. That's the big first lesson. I spent 3 days, just 3 days going back, rewatching videos, redoing the basics, and it made everything click. So what do I mean by the fundamentals? Well, the fundamentals refer to having basic or foundational principles of a subject or skill. Basically, these are the core concepts that you must understand before progressing to more advanced topics. And everything can be broken down to the fundamentals. There are fundamentals for cooking, going to the gym, swinging a baseball bat. Gosh, even competitive hobby horsing probably has fundamentals. So you might be asking, what are the fundamentals for coding? Here's my interpretation. Having a solid understanding of variables and data types, knowing your way around control flow, like if statements and loops, being able to write and use functions, understanding operators and expressions, knowing the anatomy of a class and how to use object-oriented programming, and finally, pointers. We don't talk about those. Once I relearned the fundamentals of coding, I was able to go back to my existing code and actually understand what I was reading. I was able to see why I had certain code in specific spots and also what that code was doing. And then something else hit me, and it hit me hard. Harder than a Hispanic mom swinging a chancla at you because you decided to wake up at 6 in the morning to microwave a bag of popcorn and eat it in the bathroom, hoping no one would find out. Not that I'd ever done that or anything. Since the code had become more readable to me, I realized that Unreal Engine C++ is just basic C++ with extra seasoning. I know, sounds so dumb, but hear me out. Back when I was learning Unreal Engine tutorials, people kept saying stuff like, oh yeah, Unreal Engine C++ is different, you gotta write things the Unreal way, which is kinda true. It does have macros and engine-specific functions. The problem was, this made me think that coding in Unreal Engine was different than coding regular C++. So I treated it like it was. I overthought everything. Every class I opened looked terrifying. 2 public specifiers? Pre-built functions? I'm already sweating thinking about it. But once I actually understood C++ again, I realized underneath all that Unreal fluff, it's just a class. A regular, boring C++ class. So here's the second lesson. Don't overcomplicate things in your head. I fell into something called a negative self-fulfilling prophecy, which is just a phenomenon that means when a person expects a negative outcome to happen, it will lead that person to act in ways that makes that very outcome happen. So in my case, because I expected coding in Unreal Engine to be different and more difficult than traditional coding, I unintentionally made coding in the engine different and harder than it needed to be. Everyone says game development is hard, and they're not wrong, it is hard. But the part nobody talks about is that a lot of the difficulty comes from you. From your expectations, your self-doubt, and your fear of not being good enough. That was me. I spent months thinking Unreal Engine was this massive complex beast I wasn't ready for, that I needed to know more before I could even try making real systems. But the truth is, it's impossible to know everything about your coding language and the Unreal editor. And this does not only apply to Unreal, this could be applied to any engine and any coding language. And since it's impossible to actually know everything in a game engine and coding, this leads me to my next principle. You need to learn to become resourceful and learn to find the answer on your own. And I'll briefly recap this because my last video speaks more about it. If you're interested in hearing a more detailed explanation of what I'm about to say, you can go check that video out. So what I mean by being more resourceful is that if there's a particular thing you want to do in a game, for example, I want my character to climb a wall. For your character to be able to climb a wall, you would need to set your character's movement to a flying mode. But what if you didn't know that the keyword flying mode even existed? This is where the skill of being resourceful and looking things up comes into play. The only way you could ever know what you don't know is by Googling your problem and finding the answer through keywords. With this method, you could theoretically build any system you need. Once I relearned the fundamentals, once I got out of my own head, and once I learned how to be resourceful and find the answers to the things I didn't know existed, I made more progress in 3 days than I had in my entire first year of coding. And to make this all make sense, let me walk you through how I applied each of these 3 principles to my actual project. I'm currently challenging myself to recreate a mini version of a game called Peak, and here's what I changed. First, the fundamentals. Before going back to the basics, I didn't know how to write functional expressions or pass data between classes. And it wasn't until I reviewed the fundamentals that I finally understood how to create functions to hold logic and pass data from my component class to my actor class in Unreal Engine. Once I understood the fundamentals of coding, I was finally able to build working systems and actually use my data and functions to make input actions do what I wanted. Without having a basic understanding of how code works, I would have never been able to create the systems for my character to climb. For the second principle, the mindset shift. Every time I created a new character class, I'd get overwhelmed. There were 2 public access specifiers and a couple of pre-built functions I didn't understand, and it instantly made the class feel more complicated than it needed to be. But after reviewing the fundamentals and stripping away the Unreal Engine fluff, I realized that underneath it all, it's just a bare-bones C++ class. Once I understood what those pre-built functions were doing and why they were there, the class stopped being this scary wall of code and became something I could actually manage. That mindset shift made all the difference. And lastly, the ability to be resourceful and discovering the things you don't know exist. When I was setting up my input actions for my character, I wanted my jump and climb input actions to both use the spacebar, just like the actual game Peak. My idea was to create 2 action mappings and switch between them based on whether the character was walking or climbing. The problem was I had zero clue if that was even possible or how to go about it. After a bit of researching and Googling, I ended up finding out that there are 2 functions called remove mapping context and add mapping context. Those were the 2 pieces I needed. Once I added them, I was able to swap inputs on the fly and fully complete my climbing system. I didn't know these functions even existed, but I found them because I learned to be resourceful. And that's really it. 3 simple lessons, but they changed everything for me. Relearn the fundamentals, fix your mindset, and be resourceful. And if you're ever feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or lost in your code, go back to these. You don't need to be a genius, you just need to understand these 3 principles. It helped me be able to build a working system without tutorials. And I'm sure it can do the same for you. And if you want to talk more about game development, share your wins or your struggles, or maybe you're just looking to join a community with other game developers who are also trying to figure it out, I just launched a Discord server. The link will be in the description of this video. Alright, and lastly, thank you guys so much for watching. Best of luck with all of your guys' projects. I hope something in this video resonated with you. If it helped even one person, it was worth it. So take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one.